Hey everybody, I'm Jeff.
And I'm Linda.
And I'm Scott.
And welcome to another episode of VAPI Fireside Chats. We're sitting out here at the Monongahela
He said it right.
State Forest
Monongahela.
at Shawnee, no,
Sherwood.
Lake
Sherwood.
Sherwood.
Lake Sherwood,
West Virginia.
West Virginia. By the campfires. You can see the smoke that's killing Scott right now, just burning my eyes.
I know, it is bad.
I picked a bad place to sit.
I know.
But we're going to have a little discussion here. And we're out here on a Bigfoot expedition. You can check out that video on our Slalakum channel, youtube.com/Slalakum, Slalakum, which is an interesting word.
It is.
It's an old Indian word that you may not even find on the internet. It has to do with dark creatures that lurk in the woods.
Yeah.
Particularly Bigfoot. So perhaps, being that we're out here on a Bigfoot expedition, maybe the questions tonight will pertain to Bigfoot.
I think we do have some Bigfoot questions.
I think we do. So let's go ahead and turn the camera on somebody and ask a question.
So, Jeff, I keep hearing about these claims of Bigfoot smelling really bad. So it got me to thinking, do you think Bigfoot or these species of Bigfoot people would bathe on a regular basis? Or, what kind of, would they even use soap? I don't even know. But it doesn't sound like they would bathe if people are saying they smell really bad. What do you think?
Well, that's an interesting question. And my first thought would be, yeah, they don't bathe because they smell so bad. I've never heard any reports of somebody coming up on a Bigfoot bathing, like in a stream or a lake. That doesn't mean there aren't reports out there that it happens. I just haven't heard of any. But what I think the answer to this is not so much does Bigfoot bathe, but does he brush his teeth? Okay. And I say that because, like, dogs have very bad breath. They have to eat, like, nylabones and stuff to kind of clean their teeth. Some people even have a little toothbrush that they put on their finger and, they brush the dog's teeth every once in a while. Because dogs have horrible breath. And you think about it, a dog washes himself, and it doesn't seem to help. The dog just stinks unless you give him a bath. And I think that's what we have going on here with Bigfoot. They do bathe, but their manner of bathing is like a dog licking himself. So I'm pretty sure that Bigfoot probably just sits out there in the woods and licks himself. And the problem is his breath is bad. So you have that mixing with the BO, and there you have the skunk ape.
My question pertaining to Bigfoot as well is that, and this is based on some of the reports that I've seen, and I read a lot about Bigfoot because I'm more into Bigfoot, I think, than I am into ghosts or into UFOs or aliens or anything. But mine pertains more to the eating of small children. And the reason I say this is because there's what they say is ancient Indian legends that Bigfoot will not only come into the outskirts of an Indian village and steal, or if you want to call them Native Americans, whatever you want to call them, will come in and steal children from the outskirts of the village and will take them off and eat them. Now, there's another theory that has been proposed that these Native Americans, because they know and coexist with these Bigfoot cultures so much out in the woods, they have actually created this. It's actually a myth. And they've created this story to kind of protect the Bigfoot. So, because if all the white men think that the Bigfoot are eating children, they're more likely to try to stay away from them and keep away. So, my question is, do you think that Bigfoot actually will eat our children? Or do you think that the Bigfoot are, that the Native Americans, the Indians, are actually telling people this just to sort of protect their culture and protect their people?
Well, Linda, my answer to that would be yes. I think that is a made-up thing for the Native Americans. So at first thought, it just sounded really made up. And but I mean, if you think on the opposite side, I suppose they're big enough to where they could be cannibals if they wanted to be, or you know, I guess that could always be a possibility. But you know that I understand that the Native American culture. I know that the U.S. government actually sanctions their history as a oral history,
Right.
as an official history.
Yes.
And so, so you have that in play as well. So if that's coming from an actual tribe, that might have to be, you know, somewhat credible.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, for me, as far as my opinion on that, I think that's definitely a made-up situation, for maybe various reasons that the Native Americans, that maybe that's just a warning to stay away from these things, or to keep their children away from these things as a you know, an oral tradition amongst themselves and also amongst everybody else. And also, like you said, it would help protect their situation as well. So I would say overall, yes. To that
Definitely a
question.
myth.
So, Linda,
Mhm.
you hear a lot of stories about juvenile Bigfoots.
Yes.
The question comes about when we think about Bigfoot pertaining to their young.
Yes.
And I'm still tempted to say big feet when I'm talking about them in the plural.
Right.
I'm not sure what the proper pronoun for Bigfoot would be. I think Scott and I had that discussion earlier
Mm-hmm.
as we were talking about Bigfoot being transdimensional. You know, Bigfoot being trans. We don't know if it,
Is
it
that
prefers them
plural?
or what.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, Bigfoot in relation to their children.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think a Bigfoot goes about giving birth? Like, do they have some kind of designated hospital areas or a Bigfoot midwife that comes along and assists with these things? Or do you think the Bigfoot is left to their own means to give birth, like a helpless cow when the farmer's not home?
Well, I have to say that there's a story that this brings to mind about the Great Dismal Swamp. And this is one of those areas down south of us in Southampton Roads. It's a vast area, and it's certainly an area that you would think that Bigfoot could possibly live because most of the area is just uninhabitable by normal, normal humans. They're not going to build houses out there or anything. But there is a giant canal that runs through that area. And it's one of those that is kind of the center of a lot of Bigfoot stories that come out of the area. And one such story was of two young men, two young boys who were out walking in the woods one day. And they claimed that they came upon a female Bigfoot who was out giving birth. And she was basically squatted with her back up against a tree. And there were no other Bigfoot around. There was nothing else. It was just her. And she was by herself. And it's sort of an interesting story because it begs the question, where's the male Bigfoot? Like, in females giving birth nowadays, female humans in the hospital, like the husband is always there, the boyfriend is always there. And, it's just sort of what was that?
Heard some kind of noise out there, but
Was that your stomach?
It sounded like somebody's
it
stomach,
did sound like a
but it
stomach.
wasn't mine or yours.
I mean, it didn't feel like it was mine.
You were dangling that steak out there in the woods trying to lure a Bigfoot up to the campsite earlier.
So
That
something
is true. That
Yeah, you
might
weren't
be
here for that.
Could be a response, huh?
could be.
Yeah, Linda wasn't here when we did that.
No,
No.
no, he told me about it though. but But I would have to say that I would not think that there would be a designated area. If anything, I think it could be a midwife situation, despite this story. Or it could be that they have such a vastly different culture that they have different beliefs about how a female should give birth. So, in other words, maybe they believe that the female should, for some reason, go off by herself and give birth alone. Maybe they believe that it's a very private act, and that that's something that is sort of sacred. You never know. So, it's possible that they do have this belief that they just go out on their own, or it could be possible that these kids completely made up the story, and that these Bigfoot, have kind of a midwife like we would, an elder Bigfoot that comes in, an elder female Bigfoot that comes in and assists in the birth of the young.
So, do you think this case where these boys saw this female Bigfoot giving birth, do you think that was perhaps an isolated incident? That's not typically the way that it happens? That this woman was either excommunicated from Bigfoot society or just happened to be walking along the path when it hit? Or
I would have to say the latter. I mean, it could very well be that they excommunicate certain ones for certain reasons. We don't know that. It would be pure speculation, of course, all of this is. But I would have to say that most of the time when a Bigfoot is spotted, it's either a female alone or it's a female with its young. And for that reason, I think that there may be reasons why the female Bigfoot go out and venture away from their community. Maybe it's for the sake of hunting and gathering. Maybe they're the hunters and gatherers of their community. So maybe the female ventures farther away from the community than the rest of them do. And it could be for this purpose that you would find one out in the wild by itself giving birth.
you keep looking over to the left there. Is there something going on over there?
Yeah, I'm looking to my right. There's actually a light over there, and I'm not exactly sure what it is. It gets a little brighter and gets a little dimmer, and now it's so dim that you can't even see it. And I don't think we're making a whole lot of noise, but it is well after the time when it's quiet.
That was me. Sorry.
Quiet time. Quiet time in the campground. So, and I think we do have the camp host over here on our left.
Oh, nice.
Kind of an older couple, but they are in their camp. They are in their camper, so I don't think we're actually being heard by them. But I'm wondering if we're being heard down the road here by whoever it is that's kind of shining this light around.
I'm wondering why we're talking about Bigfoot giving birth at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, I don't think he's really listening to that, but it is kind of, it's really late and it's really dark, and you never know how your voice is carrying through the woods.
That is true.
Right? Hush, hush. Well, thank you everybody for joining us for another edition of the VAPI Fireside Chats. Remember, if you have any questions that you'd like us to respond to, drop them down below. We'd love to hear them.
Yeah.
Make sure you check out Expedition Slolocum, because we're out here right now doing a little mini Bigfoot expedition, taking a tour of this beautiful park. So you're going to want to check that out on the Slolocum
And we
channel.
want the interesting questions too. We want to be able to answer questions that are some that we would not normally think of.
Some thought-provoking questions.
Yeah.
And they can be anything. All right. Until next time, I'm Jeff.
I'm Linda.
And I'm Scott.
And remember, there's much more to see in the dark.